Good morning, friends. It's me, Christiana Gaudet. I am live on my YouTube channel. I was just going through the comments for those of you who were kindly waiting. Zuri saying I am the only person that can get you up early in the morning. That makes me happy. Let me say hi to just a few people that I see here. Let's see, Chriswell, happy to see you. And of course, Chriswell reminds us that it is Talk Like a Pirate Day. Let's see, Dave, nice to see you. Pulling cards from the deck, Temperance and Justice, certainly. In fact, if you want to jump ahead, High Priestess, Temperance, and Justice is a conversation I want to have if you want to pull those. Absolutely. Anna Herring, masquerading as Marcos, good to see you here. Diva Sabrina, happy to see you. Dina Moskowitz, glad you're here. Zuri, happy to see you. Claire C., Smile Soul 20, glad you're all here. And we will welcome people as they come in. Karen Winkle, okay, and Karen, oh, she's one of our West Coast friends. We hope everybody on the West Coast is doing okay as far as the fires are concerned. And we recognize that it is substantially early there. So thank you so much for getting up. TK, 8 p.m. in India. So we scheduled this well for you. Luna Song, happy to see you. Stella Barbara, happy to see you. Okay, and Putri Pucci, maybe? I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But hi from Indonesia. So glad you're here. Marianne, so nice to see you. Pamela, glad you're here. Brooke, glad you're here. Karen Maynard, nice to see you. Becoming Me, glad you're here. Okay, and we will welcome people as they come in. Hey, Cynthia, glad you made it. Happy to see you. So, before we get going with our topic today, hey, Neil, nice to see you. Before we get going with our topic today, I want to remind you that I have 2 premium classes coming up this month. If you like these free YouTube classes, then you're going to love my premium classes on Zoom. They're 2 hours. It's a Zoom class, so you can speak, which is always a nice thing. Hey, Mike David. So nice to see you. You know, the last time we were live here, your name got somewhat mentioned. We were speaking about how much we like you, and I was speaking about how much I miss you. So glad that you're here. La Morena, glad you're here. Okay, so let's see. So Zoom classes. Thursday, September 24th, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we are doing tarot reversals on Zoom. Whether or not you have tarot reversals in your practice right now, this is a class you're going to want to take because it's going to help you understand the spectrum of possibilities for each tarot card. And it's going to help you understand how divination is also an opportunity for manifestation. There's a lot of power there. So we'd love to see you there. And if you're more of a let's see if I can speak today. If you are more of a tarot beginner, or if you want a good basic foundational class, I am doing a journey through the major arcana. That will be on September 30th. That's a Wednesday. Also at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You can get tickets to these classes on my Facebook business page. Just go to the events. My Facebook business page is called Christiana Gaudet. You can also get them on my website, tarotbychristiana.com. Go to the events. So that's Thursday, September 24th for reversals, and Wednesday, September 30th for the major arcana. Now, I am just getting new classes for October. They'll be going up on the website and on Facebook very shortly. But if you want a sneak peek, go to the live tarot webinars playlist here on my YouTube channel. What will you see there? You will see everything that's scheduled. We've got one more thing in September. That's on the 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, our YouTube Tarot Meetup. Hope to see you then. And Zuri, yes, my website is getting a facelift. So we're very excited about that. We're hard at work on that. That's why I'm sending you to my mirror site Tarot by Christiana. If you happen to go to my normal site, Christiana Gaudet, you'll see the little robot there that will say I'm getting a facelift, and you'll also see a link to where the information resides. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. We are getting a facelift. So excited for that. Of course, I've seen it in its development, and I really like it. I hope you'll like it as well. So anyway, if you go to live tarot webinars, what you will see in that playlist is every webinar that we've done here. So if you've missed a class or you want to review a class, it's right there. And you'll see the classes that are coming up. We have classes and meetups. We do 2 classes a month and 3 meetups. So always happy to play with you here on YouTube. And I will let you know, for those of you who were at our last meetup, when we played with the Major Arcana Grand Tableau, I have scheduled that as a 90-minute free class here on YouTube for next month. All right, now, I will tell you, for the classes that I do here on YouTube, mostly I get my inspiration from you. Whatever we end up talking about, whatever sort of strikes me as, oh, that's interesting, that will usually come up as a class. And that's where this class came from, Finding the Balance in Tarot. What is very interesting when we talk about sort of the book of spiritual wisdom that tarot is, there are many, many cards in the deck that advise balance. In the major arcana, in the minor arcana, they're all over the place. And so it's very possible that you'll do a spread of cards that has many cards that share this key word, balance. And that's an interesting thing when it shows up on the tarot table, because what does that mean? If you're reading for yourself, if you're reading for someone else, what does that mean? Balance. Does that mean you need to do yoga and do the standing balance postures? Does that mean you need to balance your checkbook? Does that mean that you need to be in more balance in a relationship? What the heck does it mean? And so today, we want to look at all the cards that we see balance in. We want to look at the differences in some of them, and we're going to do a comparison between 3 that I think are the strongest balance cards. We want to figure out what it means, and we wonder, in this book of spiritual wisdom that tarot is, why is balance such an important point? Why is it so important that we learn balance? And so as you comment on these things, and I do really appreciate your comments, my question, I guess my request of you is that you will tag your comments so we know what question you're answering. Like right now, folks are coming in and it's obvious they're coming in and sharing the cards that they see as cards of balance. And I absolutely appreciate that. We've got Chariot, we've got the 2 of Pentacles, we've got Temperance, we've got Diva Sabrina, happy about a 90-minute free class. Thank you for your support. Very good. Very good. So let me just go through the cards that I've identified. I went through my deck and I identified, this is where I see balance. Right, and as you want to add cards to this list, just do as Christine did, #balance. Absolutely. So first, the High Priestess. And it's interesting to note that the High Priestess has these 2 columns, the column of mercy and the column of severity, and they show up in many other cards. And so you might say that wherever you see those 2 pillars, there's going to be a reference to balance. I didn't pull all of those cards, but it is interesting that there are 2 aspects of the High Priestess that really follow through the rest of the cards, being the 2 pillars, and also the fact that her gown turns into water and flows off the page. And we see that river running through many of the major arcana cards. Okay. Now, let's see, let me do this right. Okay, The Lovers, the Chariot, Strength. Strength. Do you see balance and strength? I do, because of the balance between the woman and the lion. Two very different sorts of forces working together. Of course, Justice, Temperance, the Star. Do you see balance in the Star? I certainly do. Because of one foot on water, one foot on land, water onto water, water onto land. I definitely see balance there. Judgment. So I chose Judgment because it is a 2. It's card 20. It's a 2. Do we see balance here? That's an interesting question. Hashtag Judgment. Do you see balance in Judgment? If so, how? I would argue it's the balancing of the account of the past so that you can move to the future. Now, a lot of you, of course, have mentioned the 4 2s. And also, let's not forget the 6 of Pentacles, where we see a scale. Now, just as an aside, I will mention that if I see Justice and the 6 of Pentacles coming up, they're the 2 places in a weight deck where we see scales. And with that, I often think of balancing your weight. Very often it will come up for people who are actively engaged in a struggle with the scale that you stand on to balance their weight. Just saying. So let me go back and see some... Chriswell likes my under construction robot. Okay. Okay, so, right, Temperance, the Lovers, all the 2s, absolutely. Okay, TK, I see the world as the balance. It's 360-degree way of viewing balance. Beautiful. Good Spirit, nice to see you. Justice. David says any 2 in the deck, the Lovers and the Devil. Right, you'd want to put the Devil in there too, wouldn't you? The Magician balances what's above and below. Goodness gracious, yes. So true. Okay, folks, here's a question from Anna. Still trying to see the difference between balance and harmony. Anyone want to speak to that? Hashtag balance harmony. TK says Hierophant as balance as he is the council and a female version of the High Priestess. There you go. Okay, Anna, Judgment, the need for balance, maybe not the balance itself. Interesting. Christine, why do we see Justice as balance? Well, Justice, I think, in its very nature, is all about balancing out what is fair. When we look at Justice in a reading, it can talk about dealing with the court of law. It can talk about fairness. And it can talk about finding the balance in your life, which so often is figuring out what is fair. If you are balancing your time between work and home, what's fair for each? If you're balancing time between, the time you spend with your romantic partner and the time you spend with the friends, what's fair for each? Balance in many ways is about fairness, isn't it? Okay. So, any thoughts about balance and harmony? And Dave says, life is all about keeping the yin and yang in balance, isn't it? So this goes to the question of why is balance such a big deal in tarot? When we look at tarot as a book of spiritual wisdom, clearly this book of spiritual wisdom is telling us that balance is a super duper important thing. Now, if we think of it like from an Eastern perspective, the idea of the middle path, that everything needs to be, in the middle path, not too tight, not too loose, but the middle way, as the right way. I think this reflects that in a lot of ways. I think when we talk about our journey towards spiritual enlightenment, we have to recognize that balance is really important. If you go toward fundamentalism, you are no longer enlightened. However, if you cannot have any faith at all, you are no longer enlightened. The middle way. The middle way. Okay, why is Lovers a balance card? Okay, well, Lovers very much is about the balance between male and female, the balance between thoughts and desires, the balance of the things that we want, and the way that we integrate things into our lives. And so there's really a differentiation here between this and that and how things fit together. And if you look in the weight illustration, it's interesting to note that he's looking at her, she's looking at the angel. So there is that. Now, Dina says, well, what about the idea of duality? Please, please, please expand that. Talk to us. How do you see duality, and how do you see duality as part of balance? Jean Mnuchin, balance and harmony. Harmony is a balance achieved. And you know, that's very true. I don't know if you've seen any of my Three of Cups videos. I'm a very amateur musician, as you may have noticed the instruments behind me that honestly spend more time behind me than they do in my hands, which is why I'm such an amateur. But I've got these great two ladies that are better musicians than I am, and for some reason they're willing to play with me. So we call ourselves the Three of Cups, and we've been making these videos together on Filmora. And one of us, not me, sings great harmonies. But it is very interesting if the sound EQ is not in balance. If you can't hear the harmonies, not good. And if the harmonies overwhelm the melodies, not good. So even from a musical perspective, harmony needs to be in balance. Absolutely. Christine says, I'm a Libra. I always need my middle path. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see. Gypsy Jade, I often wonder, how do you know whether balance is the middle way or really just sitting on the fence? Man, you know, especially in times of moral crisis, as I think we're dealing with in a lot of places in the world right now, that is a very interesting question. You know, there's that great quote, the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in time of great moral crisis retain their neutrality. And yet, there are many times that you have to be able to see both sides of a situation. And, you know, right now in the United States, and I think in a lot of places in the world, there is so much division, it's hard to find a middle ground. But how do you find a middle ground on something like human rights? You know, it's a hard question. And maybe tarot does not answer those questions. And maybe our spiritual path is not to answer all those questions. Maybe our spiritual path is to recognize the importance of asking and pondering all of those questions. And maybe that's why all of these cards are here. TK, and anyone else who wants to speak to Gypsy Jade's very wise question, please do. TK, balance is Lovers and harmony is Two of Cups. So balance is the essential and first step toward harmony. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Anna Herring. Should we consider the triangle that forms in some cards like the Devil and Lovers, etc., as showing balance? Interesting question. I think it could. It absolutely could. Chriswell agrees. All right. So now, I would argue, you know, that there are a lot of cards that speak of balance, but there are some cards that speak like very clearly of balance. And I've chosen the High Priestess, Justice, and Temperance. And Diva Sabrina says there is no middle ground for human rights. Not everything has an equal and fair opposite. I tend to agree with you on that. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's true. And I think it's hard to figure out how do we have that truth and then find some, you know, how do we deal with that going forward? It's a great question and a great truth. Absolutely. Karen, it is great to see you here this morning. Glad that you're here. Okay, Jean Mnuchin, how is the Devil balance? Oh, let's play with that. Let's get out the Devil and the Lovers. So the Lovers and the Devil are essentially the same number. They're both 6. And we see balance here in many ways because of these two Adam and Eve characters. I think, Jean says a really important thing, because the devil will very often talk about things that are out of balance. That, my liking to have a glass of wine with dinner has now turned into a bottle of wine every night, and all of a sudden I'm not in balance at all. So it may be with these two cards that the Lovers is balance achieved, and the devil is what happens when we get out of balance. Perhaps. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts about that as well. TK says, balance is the objective, but utopia. We can strive toward it, but cannot achieve it 100%. So that's an interesting question. Is it possible in a society to achieve 100% balance or 100% human rights? I'm of the Star Trek generation that believes it can be done, but what does that mean, right? That the goal is always the goal, not necessarily what you achieve. Okay. Balance versus harmony from Dave. Balance can be achieved when two sides are of equal strength, even if they are violently opposed. Harmony is when you can diffuse that violent opposition. That is freaking brilliant. Did everyone get that? That was really, really good. Go back and read that. Christine says the devil wants to get you out of harmony. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so let's look at these 3 cards that I have chosen as cards that maybe, if we are listing the keywords of a card, all of these cards that we've mentioned, balance is going to be in there. But I would argue that for these 3 cards, High Priestess, Justice, and Temperance, balance is going to be like on the top of the list. But let's talk about the differences of balance. How are these cards different? We know that in the Venn diagram of these 3 cards, in the center is going to be balance. But how do we see the balance as different in each of these cards? And this is very important. When you do a reading and you see a lot of these cards come up and you say, okay, balance is a key theme, but you're still going to have to go back and get all of the meanings out of each of these cards, or it's going to be a really dull and short reading, right? So let's see what we see here. Let's see. I just wanted to go back to a couple of comments here from Claire C. Regarding the middle ground or stuck on the fence, always check emotional versus mental reasoning. Very interesting point. Very good. And from Jean, 100% balance. I don't think so, because imbalance brings us forward and is an agent of change. Interesting. Good point. Good point. Okay, so Christine says, of these 3, each one has in the subconscious different beliefs and different concepts of their own harmony. Or is that about each person? Could be true for either. Okay, so when we talk about these 3, let us first comment that they are different elements. The High Priestess is water, Justice is air, and Temperance is fire. Okay. The High Priestess, of course, sits between the pillars of mercy and severity. She is the epitome of the wisdom of balance. But what else does she mean in a reading? She can talk about perfectionism. She can talk about keeping secrets. She can talk about silence. She can talk about the journey into the underworld, the journey into the subconscious. What is beneath the veil? What is below the water? And so when we look at the balance here, the balance is where we keep ourselves between that pillar of mercy and severity, where we are able to hold space for, when we talk about justice, so often, like, okay, I'm not a fan of capital punishment, I'll be honest with you. But people say, you know, when capital punishment is enacted, that justice has been served. High Priestess, I think, holds room for both, you know, mercy and severity, for punishment, but punishment with compassion, right? So we see that here. Now, the High Priestess also tells us to meditate. The High Priestess can also talk about perfection in womanhood. The High Priestess can talk about passivity, think but do not act. Any other thoughts about the High Priestess? Just tag it, High Priestess. And now, Justice. And it's interesting to note that when we are working with tarot decks where Justice is 11 and Strength is 8, the High Priestess and Justice are both 2, right? And just a comment from Anna, High Priestess, knowing how to live with your inner demons and remain sane. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Luna, very good. Temperance is emotional balance. High Priestess is spiritual balance. Justice is physical balance. Very interesting. So when we look at Justice, Dina says High Priestess balances by keeping her opinions to herself. But that doesn't mean she doesn't act on them. You know, she may not speak on them, but she may donate money in secret. She may vote in secret, right? Right? Okay, so Betty says in a reading that often the High Priestess is the mistress, which is actually an interesting thing because that brings things out of balance, doesn't it? Okay, so Justice. Justice wants the balance that is fair. So, you know, it might be interesting that the High Priestess is internal balance and Justice is external balance. Justice is the balance that everyone can see. I'm going to cut the cake. Like, you know, when my kids were growing up, man, I had to make sure that if you're giving food, it has to be exactly like everyone gets exactly the same number of jelly beans, right? That's sort of this external justice, how to be fair. And it's hard because in certain times, sometimes one kid needs more than another, not necessarily more jelly beans, but more time, more attention, more money. You know, so how to do that balance? Again, the internal versus the external. Now, in readings, Justice can very often talk about the law, can very often talk about fairness or perceived unfairness. When it's reversed, I call this the you got screwed card, interestingly. Now, when we bring in Temperance, when we think about Temperance, so Temperance is sort of this forced thing. It's this very active thing. So you might say that High Priestess is silent and internal balance. Justice is public balance, you know, external. And Temperance is how we create the balance. So in a way, you know, this would be how we solve our problems in public. And we do it by taking a little of this and a little of that and mixing it together to find the perfect blend, recognizing you're never going to find perfection, but you're going to find the perfect blend. Okay, so Anna says an interesting thing. Justice shows a lot as karma. Now, if we think about karma as a key word, I would say Wheel of Fortune, Justice, and Judgment together. And that would be an interesting class too, right? The 3 cards of karma, which is also an interesting thing to talk about what karma is. Recognizing that karma is this very Eastern idea that Westerners don't tend to understand. And tarot is Western occult tradition. So right away, when we talk about karma in tarot, it is such an interesting thing. So I'd love to hear more about how we see justice as karma and what that means to you, and what does karma mean to you. And I'd love to see that conversation. You know, again, that may be a whole class. We may do that in November. But hashtag karma. What is it, and what does it mean when it shows up in a reading? Okay. Melanie, I'm struck by the similarity in design between the High Priestess and the Justice card, similar to Lover's Devil. Yes, and in each case, they're the same number. So it really makes sense. Anna, Temperance, in many readings, it shows an exchange of fluids and making art. Yes, your three primary key words for Temperance: art, time, and alchemy. So that's a very interesting thing. Claire calls Temperance the spiritual bartender. Yes, absolutely. And Anna says maybe karma is doing the time to fit the crime. Could be. Okay, and thank you for the love. Okay, so let's move on and let's look at the 4 twos. Or actually, before we do that, are there any other hashtag major arcana cards? Are there any other major arcana cards you wanted to talk about in terms of balance? And so Betty says, justice, karma is justice, someone paying for a crime they've committed. Now, for anyone who has studied, you know, I might ask our friends in India and Indonesia, anyone who has like been raised with a spiritual view of karma from one of the places where this concept actually originates, is the idea that doing the time for the crime, is that karma? Is that really what it is? I mean, I know that's how we see it in the Western world, but is that originally what it is? Can anyone really explain karma? And I can't, but I know that I can't. And I do know that it is a lifetime to lifetime concept. And I do know that it is about balance, but not necessarily about punishment. Oh gosh, a bad pirate joke is coming. And TK says doing jail time is material karma. Okay, give us more, give us more. Okay. And you know, Jean says a really important thing: is the justice system, and I'll add of any country, actually fair? I know it absolutely is not in the United States. Absolutely not. Okay, TK, thank you. Karma has a universal nature with many aspects. Very good. Very good. Okay. Karen Winkle, I see karma in judgment. As this cycle completes, you see how the karma measures out and will be played out in the next lifetime. Absolutely. Okay, La Morena, wheel or hanged man for balance. I see it in all of it. And Emperor and Empress together and things of that sort. Right, that some cards you put together and find balance. I see balance in both the wheel and the hanged man. The hanged man is balancing there in a lot of ways. The balance that comes from not moving. And like if you do the yoga postures of balance, like standing bow or balancing stick or standing head to knee, you know, any of those sort of balancing postures, not moving is the key, right? As soon as you start to move, you fall out of the posture. The wheel balances because it's always turning. You know, it's always someone else's turn to be on top and someone else's turn to be on the bottom. Now, there was, balance in the Chariot. So the Chariot is interesting because it is opposites moving together, pulling together in unison. Chariot, of course, is related to Cancer, the crab, who moves sideways from side to side. So we move forward, but we do it by pulling opposites in union. Okay. Okay, and we're going to move into the minor arcana. Anna, how does the Four of Wands fit into the balance concept? And I do think with, any even number card, there's going to be balance. And the Four of Wands, which certainly show harmony, going back to that word. Christine says karma is not punishment, it's evolution. Very good. Dave, it's my understanding that thinking of karma as a punishment reward system is a gross oversimplification. It runs much deeper than that. That's my understanding too. Cynthia, karma is some lesson you have to learn in order to balance, there's that word, in your spiritual path. Oh, Chris, well, that's a good joke. I'm not going to read that one aloud, but there is in two parts a good pirate joke. Okay, from TK, karma is like a system. It will answer us the question of what, when, who, where, why, and this is a complex system of equations ranging across lifetimes, and the human mind is not actively conscious to grasp. Thank you. The star as balance, yes. So the star is really about healing. In the sequence, it comes after the devil and the tower. And we find our healing in balance, knowing that we will have the abundance that we need. Now, I know many people see the star as a card of hope, and I think that's a more modern sort of feeling about this card because of Disney and wishing on a star and all of that. But the key is the things you hope for, the healing and the abundance that you need will be given to you. And you will have what you need, which is the balance that we all seek. Good Spirit says, Emperor, balance of power and discipline. Oh, very good, very good, very good. Christine, is temperance healing? I think it absolutely can be, yes, because you have to find everything you need to have your healing. Okay, let's move on now to the minors, where we all agree the 4 twos are about balance. So can we go through these cards and see what kind of balance we are seeing in each of them? So again, tag the card and tell us your thoughts. I'll go through quickly. But if you want to ask a question or speak about balance in one of these 4 cards, just tag it. Okay, so Crowley calls the Two of Swords the card of peace. Very often here we see the balance of different ideas, right? As you're trying to make a decision, you're weighing things out. But you're also perhaps at peace with what you don't know, and you're at peace with your indecision. Now, I often see here that the heart is crossed out and the eyes are blindfolded. So we find our peace by going within. So there's a balance between the outer world and the inner world where, much like the High Priestess, we have to be on the inside. I think that this is a card that speaks to decision making, but very often it's a decision that needs to be made not based on what you see out here and not based on what's in your heart, but based on your knowledge. Being swords, being air, it's what you know. Not what you see and not what you think, but what you know. Okay. So Christine in all the twos sees reflection, very much like the High Priestess, right? Back to Temperance from Cynthia. Temperance is about finding resources to balance your life, 100%. Okay, let's do the Two of Pentacles. So this can be about the balancing of resources, right? Where you may have to work really hard to balance the budget. You may have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. You may have to work 2 part-time jobs. You may not have to have, you may not feel like you have everything you need, but you find a way to make it work. Sometimes balance is juggling. So that's an interesting thing. Hey, David, glad you're here. Yeah, sometimes it happens like that. I can't really explain it, but there it is. Okay, so with the Two of Pentacles, it's a different kind of balance because we don't have all the resources we need, but we find a way to balance it out anyway. Here, how do we see balance in the Two of Wands? Where we are dreaming, where we are planning, where we are manifesting, where we are thinking about the future. It is certainly a balance between the past and the future. It is taking time out in the moment to figure out, maybe it's a balance between what you want and what is possible to create. But, this is an interesting card for balance. Where do you see balance in the Two of Wands? Hashtag Two of Wands. What do you see? Anna, very good. Two of Pentacles. Balance coming from flexibility. Right, and balance in juggling, which is really different, from balance in yoga, where you hold a posture. Balance in juggling is constantly moving, and that's more a temperance thing, right? So we're seeing there's a lot of different kinds of balance, a lot of different ways to balance. Okay, Two of Cups, balance between two people, balance in a partnership, how we balance out a relationship. So other minor arcana cards that talk about balance, we've mentioned the Four of Wands, of course, the Six of Pentacles, where it's a balance between what you give away and what you need for yourself. A balance between giving charity and receiving charity. Okay, good spirit, who is Mike David. The Two of Pentacles balance responsibilities, which can be connected to karma. Very good. Cynthia, can the Two of Pentacles also be struggling? It is a struggle. I often see it as like the single mom or the person who's working and going to school. It's a struggle, but it's a struggle you can do. Absolutely. So when we look at all of these cards, there are so many kinds of balance. Christine, the difference between the Lovers and the Two of Cups. Very good question. And I used to teach them as very similar, and I don't anymore. Remembering that the Lovers is air and Gemini, and the Two of Cups is water. And we also see the caduceus in the Two of Cups, which is really the healing power of love. So with the Lovers, very often I see decisions. I see, how are you going to integrate that together? How is that all going to work together? It can be about a relationship, and it can be about one of those karmic relationships, which may or may not work out. Whereas the Two of Cups, I could see as any kind of partnership, but a partnership that can bring healing. So there can be partnership in both of these. And really, I have learned that no card will always predict happily ever after for real. Relationships or tricky things. But with the Lovers, there's more about decisions. And with the Two of Cups, there's more about healing and partnership. And with the Lovers, there's more about, so how are you going to make that work? And with the Two of Cups, there's more about, well, this is an obviously good partnership. Okay. So, my question to you now is, when the cards say, okay, you're reading for someone or you're reading for yourself, and the cards say you need balance, what do you actually say to someone? Because I feel like that's a really general, vague thing to say in a tarot reading. So how do we, when we see these cards of balance, how do we give a really good reading? And let's see some other comments here from Luna Song. Two of Swords, the three minds. Not the brain, not the heart, but the gut. Interpretation, follow your gut when making a decision. Interesting. Okay. Putri, The Two of Cups, hashtag harmony. There you go. TK, lovers, balance love life. Two of Cups, balance marriage life. Okay. Christine, do I teach all of these in my workshop? So in my basic major arcana workshop, yes. Yes, I do. Absolutely. Okay. Karen Maynard, Two of Cups can be partnership between yourself or querent and spirit. Right. Any kind of partnership, really. And so Claire, speaking to balance, step back and regroup and center. And I think sometimes that is good advice. But sometimes I feel like we need to be more specific. You know, if you've ever heard, like, what is the worst thing someone can say about a tarot reading? It was really very vague in general, right? That's the last thing. If you're a professional reader, the last thing you want to hear someone say about a reading you did is that was vague and general. So when we see balance, I think we need to be really clear with people. You need balance in what part of your life? It could be, hey, Richard, nice to see you. It could be, oh, yes, there will be a minor arcana workshop coming up in October. Same thing. Yeah, I do try to teach these things. Absolutely. So I think when, this is what I think, whether you're reading for yourself or someone else, whether it's professional or casual, if you feel the word balance coming out of your mouth, which clearly, given all of these cards, it's gonna more than once. When you feel the word balance coming out of your mouth, you had better be ready to follow it up with balance between what and what, and or what can you do to achieve balance. Let me go to some comments here. From Dave, Two of Wands, balancing wishes and expectations of the real world. I think that's perfect. I love that. Yes. Yes. And Christine said the worst thing is keywords in a card reader. Right. And keywords can be so helpful in helping us understand cards. And there are times that you can creatively use keywords that really work. But if that's the extent of your reading, you did not do a reading. You just parroted a bunch of card meanings. From Dina, balance can be based on where the card is spread. Where the card is in the spread? Is it the challenge card? Sure, right. Where it comes up, what questions is it asking or answering? Absolutely. So Pamela says, what actionable steps can you take at this time to balance XYZ in the area of your life as it comes up in the reading? Right. So for example, just because I've pulled all of these cards, the Six of Pentacles might say you really need to balance what you do for others versus what you do for yourself. Or you may need to find balance in allowing other people to help you. The Two of Pentacles might say, so you are going to have to work really hard to make ends meet, but you can do it. Pamela says, so I use that question to read further to get actionable steps that they can do at that time to achieve balance in that particular part of life. That's right. You can always ask questions and pull more cards. Absolutely. But I would also posit that some of those answers are going to be in these cards. So these cards say you need balance, and this is perhaps how to do it, or this is perhaps the area of life in which you need balance. For example, strength. You need to find the balance between your desire to be kind and gentle and your desire to rip someone's face off, right? Okay, Mike David, in a reading can do a separate run of cards on each possibility to find a balance, right? Especially if it's like, do I do this or do I do that? Absolutely. Okay, Richard said, I'm eating right now. So balance in eating or healthy balanced food and drink choices. Right, and that's where the devil comes up very strongly. That's where temperance comes up. That's where those cards with scales come up, you know, having to balance the scales. Okay, so Christine, I said I'm not sure, but I think that I said that we really end up, when we're reading, we end up talking about balance because all these cards talk about it. So we have to be able to go further. We have to talk about what kind of balance and give ideas about how to find balance. And the two ideas that have come up from both Pamela and Mike, and I agree with this, the idea of asking further questions and pulling cards about how to create that balance, but also looking at these different cards of balance and figuring out, you know, what does each one of these, whichever cards come up, what do they recommend, right? So now let's talk about balance in our own lives. And I think at this point, you have all pulled out some cards having to do with balance. So I want you to do this, and you don't have to, we don't all have to be working from the same subgroup. But I want you to pull out, if you haven't already, I want you to pull out some cards that speak of balance, whether it's just the High Priestess, Justice, and Temperance, whether it's just the twos, whether it's some conglomeration of all of them. And I want you to shuffle just those group, just those cards in the group, and ask, where in my life do I need to nurture more balance? And Anna says, often the balance card corroborates the imbalance seen in the spread. And it is through other cards we figure out what. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, that's a whole question too, is like, how often is a tarot reading just about finding the right balance? I think, you know, very often. I mean, is that what we're learning in this class? Is that very often as tarot readers, we are helping ourselves and others find the right balance, and finding the right balance is a key to pretty much everything. Is that true? So here's the exercise. Gather up some cards that to you speak of balance and ask just those cards, where in my life do I need balance, and or what do I need to do to create that balance? Just pull one card and see how much information for yourself you can get from that, and share what you got. Okay, share what you got and what it means to you. Okay. I got the Six of Pentacles. And I think this comes up for me in a lot of different ways. And there is something there, you know, again, with the scale, I'm always thinking about weight and weight and taking care of myself, diet, exercise, all of that is a constant thing for me. That's a constant struggle to balance that out. And I do try to give a lot to the community, like this free class that we're doing right now. But this is also my full-time job, so trying to balance that out is important. And I think for me too, there is finding balance between alone time, family time, time with friends. And of course, you know, it's different in a time of COVID because I'm staying really locked down. But I do try to Zoom with my friends and that kind of thing as well. So that's what that is for me. So go ahead. Karen got the Two of Cups. What does that mean to you? Share what it means to you. I'll add my thoughts. So Anna got the High Priestess. Enough keeping it all inside. Just say what you need to say. Right, right, right. The great John Mayer has a song about that. I love John Mayer. Okay. Jean got Temperance, patient, creativity, looking for how to put things together in a new place. Never has there been a more perfect card for you. And you do a lot of kind of mixed media stuff too, using a lot of different talents. Absolutely. And Christine, I got the High Priestess. I need to meditate more and balance my stress life right now with too many things together. Absolutely. Dina, Chariot. I am doing a lot of living, big lunar cycles right now. Sure, sure. Oh, and that makes sense with Cancer. Cynthia, I got the Devil. So what do you need to bring into balance? What are you doing too much of or not enough of? Karen Winkle, I got Temperance. I think for me, it's balancing what I give to myself with what I give to others. I've always been really bad about prioritizing myself, right? And recognizing, Karen, that you will always have the ingredients to create what you need. Dave, I pulled the star. I've got so much creative energy that's been put on the shelf because I can't seem to get projects to fruition. For me, balancing would find that vehicle for getting it out. And I so truly believe that, A, you're going to, and Dave, I've seen your brilliance in so many ways. And so I know that needs to happen. And with the star there, there's a part of me that says, if you're not an astrologer, maybe get an astrologer to do your chart, figure out kind of what's going on there and what energies are going to help you. Melissa, I pulled the Two of Swords. I need more balance in my thinking. Okay, Karen Maynard about her Two of Cups. I think that means my relationship with spirit and that I have to balance my intuitive abilities in a healthy way. I would agree. And I would also say, though, that even in your relationship with family and people around you, that sometimes I feel like your needs don't get met in those relationships. And what are you going to do about that? I think there's a thing there. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our time together. I think this has been, I've learned a lot in this class. I hope you have too. Again, I want to remind you to sign up for my Zoom classes if you want to balance things out. Buy a ticket if you can. Thursday, September 24th, we're doing the reversals, and we're doing the major arcana on September 30th. Remember to check the live tarot webinars playlist. I will answer that question. You'll find everything archived and everything coming up that's on the schedule for YouTube. Okay, which card could represent mediumship in tarot? So it's interesting to note that one of our premium classes coming up in October will be Tarot Beyond the Veil, mediumship in tarot. The Moon, the High Priestess, Judgment. There's a lot of cards there. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to thank you so much. I want to remind you I am available for readings by phone, Skype, FaceTime, Messenger, Zoom. Tickets to classes, new events coming soon. Remember that you can sign up for my weekly newsletter, Tarot Topics. You can go to my website, tarotbychristiana.com, and sign up for that. Remember, I'm also available for mentorship. If you want to get to the next level in your tarot practice, if you want help with your tarot business, if you want a next level personal growth experience, I can work with you. We'll be back here on YouTube this coming Sunday, the 27th, 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for an hour-long tarot meetup. I want to thank you all so much for being here. It is always my great pleasure to work with you. And what else to say? Oh, so if you want to see those Three of Cups videos, if you look in here, if you look at the list of things that I've liked, you'll find them. They're actually housed on someone else's YouTube channel, but there it is. And oh, I know what else. StarCast and StarCon. StarCon will be a new annual tarot conference. It's STAARCON. And we have a YouTube channel called StarCast, STAARCAST. We're doing a podcast. You can see it in video form or you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. StarCast, STAARCAST. Mike David, you have been on my mind and in my heart so much. I hope you're doing well. So good to see you. So good to see all of you. And so definitely, if you haven't subscribed here, if you haven't liked this video, please do. And definitely subscribe to StarCast. And on Facebook, please like the StarCon page, STAARCON, and join the group StarCon 2021. Oh, the Saturday Psychic Sampler is going to be in half an hour at noon on my Facebook business page. So meet me in half an hour on my Facebook business page. We'll do some readings. I want to thank you all so very much. Take good care.